Good morning, everybody. So, as usual, I have scribbled on the screen already. As usual, we've got our put my teeth in. We've got our 6 sentences to have a look at. So this is the picture. Okay, so it looks like a library, a very old style library. And then the sentences that we've got to fix are here. Elsa stood in the room. It was a big room with rows of books and a nice floor. The ceiling was very high and it was very light. Now, I'm really excited for this one because for the first time in a while, it feels like there's not a big scary monster for us to address. It's just a setting description. And it's a setting description with no sort of tension, no fear, no anything. It's a lovely picture. So we can finally tap into a whole different language. So what I'm going to do, just in case you haven't watched any of these before, is I'll plan out some ideas of what I want to talk about, generate some vocab, then I will go away, I'll write it myself. That's an opportunity for you to write it yourself as well, and then we'll come back together and have a look at what I've done. Okay? So, the first word that springs to mind is ornate. Now, if something's ornate, it's like an ornament. It's very delicate and old-fashioned, ornate. And that's the key word I would use to describe this. There's a lot of bronze. So it is going to be a setting description. Elsa can stand in the room all she likes, but I'm not talking about a big room with rows of books and a nice floor. It has to go more than that. So let's have a marble tiled floor. And then, just sprung to my mind, a marble tiled floor with patterns of wear. I suppose I'll reword that a little bit when I come to writing it. But what I mean by that is you'll be able to see where people have walked on it. So there'll be cleaner tiles and dirtier tiles because you can almost see the patterns of where people have been walking. Okay, so you've got bronze, you've got sunlight streaming in through skylights. I'm not sure where the light's coming from, but I'm going to sort of pretend it's up here. Sunlight. And then I love the idea of it streaming in. It's a very relaxed word. It makes you think of a river, I suppose, but it's a very delicate word. Sunlight streamed in. Sunlight streaming in. And then reflecting off. Reflecting around the place. I'll reword that. Making the place glisten and glitter and feel alive. Glitter. Again, I'll reword glitter. I don't like that. But I want something like that. I like the idea of, like, do you know when you look through a kaleidoscope and all the lights and the colours keep swirling and moving around? That's what I want it to be like. So the sunlight glistens through and it maybe refracts. That's the word I'm after. Maybe. And the light refracts and splits and you've got reds beaming through and greens and it feels as though the library's alive because the colours are moving and glistening and like water. Oh, rippling like water, that's a good one. Okay. So I could have the sunlight streams in and ripples across the bookshelves like a water or like a river flowing. So now I've got two links to the idea of water, and it makes this place feel alive because moving. Obviously water isn't alive, but what I mean is it feels like it's alive because there's a sense of movement in there, rippling light. Okay. So that's doing the job very well. And it's full of similes and metaphors there. Now, what else? Globes. Okay, so let's talk about the globes. Now, to me, does she say... No. On the picture that I've cut off, it said at the bottom it was a magic library. Okay. And I do actually have to talk about the books at some point. Okay. Globes. Now, what I'm thinking is that these are globes that are sort of fantastical, a bit like Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe-esque, and maybe they show different worlds. So globes of different sizes. Showing worlds. Unknown. to Elsa. Okay, and then I need to talk about the books, don't I? So, I like the idea of the books almost making like brick walls. So what about thousands of books? Stood uniformly, or uniformed, run out of space there, like bricks. No, I'm not a big fan of that actually, in bookshelves. And then when you get old books like this, there's not a lot of colour here, but you normally get those deep, rich colours. So I'm thinking like mahogany, burgundy, and then a nice green. I'll Google that. So I need to find a nice green colour. And again, me saying, oh, I'll Google that. It's no problem. I know what I want. I just haven't got the vocabulary at the moment, which is where the thesaurus comes in, or Grammarly, or whatever comes in. So I know what I want, and then I go and find the word that fits what I want, if that makes sense. It's in my head somewhere, I just can't access it. So you're building up this idea of a very sort of posh, rich, beautiful scene, which is what I want. Okay. Talk about the size at some point, but I don't need to say too much on that. And then I like the idea of explaining the roof as well. So the roof is painted to depict famous scenes in stories, and then I can give you some examples in my writing. Okay. So it's the idea of, I'm thinking like Hogwarts Library or something like that. Like, it should feel magical. It shouldn't just be dull and flat and boring. It should feel magical and wondrous. And if you notice, I haven't described the banisters, I haven't described the figurehead here, I haven't described the painting, I haven't described these cabinets here, or whatever those are. But it doesn't matter. I could do if I wanted to, if I want to go on a bit further, but you get the essence of the image from this. Okay, so those are my ideas. So I've got the idea of the patterns of wear on the floor is to show that it's old. You've got the bronze because brown is boring. Gold isn't quite it, so it's bronze. You could say bronze and gold, which are obviously both metals, so I could just say that at some... God, gold, metal. So I could use the word metal at some point. I love the idea of the sunlight coming in and the, wherever I put it, the rippling light. So that's definitely going in. I need to talk about the size, I need to talk about the globes, and I need to talk about the books. Okay, so I'll work out the order to put that in. Those are my thoughts. When I look at that picture, those are the pieces of vocabulary that I want to put in. Those are the boxes I want to tick. If you want to have a go at putting all of my ideas together in your own sentence, then have a go now. Okay. I'll disappear for a few minutes, get it written, and then come back and talk you through what I've done. Okay. Right. So here is the plan that I went in with. Now, what I've decided to do as I'm writing is try and weave in storyline alongside my description. So you'll notice I keep talking and drawing that. I don't know why. You'll notice that as I'm giving you description, there is a story progressing. So I keep with Elsa, and you go through the story through Elsa's mindset. Okay. Now, what I'm hoping it does is give you this idea of there's loads of similes and metaphors. There's loads of really evocative language that really makes you think of what I want you to think of. I don't just use the word red, for example, it's burgundy. I don't just say wood, it's mahogany wood. I'm very specific with my nouns or my adjectives. Adjectives? Yeah, my adjectives. But it should feel magic. By the end, it should feel overwhelming and magic. So I'm thinking a little bit of inspiration from Philip Pullman's The Northern Lights. So it's the Earth, but not quite the Earth. Things are a little bit different. But also that feeling of if you were to enter Hogwarts Castle for the very first time and everything's amazing. That's the sort of language I've tried to pull on. So it should feel like that. And because it's supposed to be a magic library, it would very firmly sit within the sci-fi or fantasy element. So I can lean into that a little bit more. So that was the plan, and I'll take you over now to my example. It says there you go. So Elsa opened the ornate mahogany doors to the library with a little effort. In fact, I'm going to embed that with a little effort, and was struck at once with the smell. It was the smell of books, an unmistakable smell made stronger with age. It smelled beautiful. Okay, and I think it was beautiful. Instead of smell again. That's something you can all relate to. You all know the smell of books. So by putting that in, already you're using your five senses for your reader, and they've got something they can relate to. The pages of these books were bound in leather of deep burgundy or pine, and adorned shelves 20 feet tall that ran the circumference of the room. So what I'm saying there, using lots of fancy language, is the books are covered in leather. Old books would be leather of deep burgundy, which is a red, pine, a green, but it's a darkish green. Okay, and adorned shelves means, and they sit on shelves 20 feet tall that ran around the room. So adorned and circumference are just fancier words. Okay, they're just an up-leveled version of the vocabulary. But if I said the pages of these books were put in leather of red and green, and they sat on shelves around the edge of the room, it's all right, but this one makes it sound fancy, and the room is fancy. So I'm matching my language to my setting. There must have been thousands of books. Elsa would, and this is where you just keep bringing in your character. So I'm giving you the description through her. I'm not just stopping my story to give you loads of description and go, right, I'll carry on. You're experiencing it with her. Elsa wondered if there were any in here that had never been read. The marble floor clicked under Elsa's feet as she made her way to the centre of the cavernous library. So there, I've told you the floor is marble, and I've told you it's cavernous, it's massive. But I haven't just gone, there was a marble floor and it was really big. I'm weaving in the description through an action. Elsa's moving to the middle, so I can tell you the floor she's on, and I can tell you the size of it then. She noticed that some of the stones were more worn than others, from where paths had been forged to the most popular literature. Elsa swore to forge her own path in this room if she ever had the chance to enter again. So again, I'm not just going, there was a path, she's noticed it, and then she has a bit of a think about it. Now, the idea of this stones being more worn than others shows you the age. If you've got long enough for the stones to wear down, then it's got to be old, hasn't it? And again, this Elsa swore to forge her own path in this room if this was a bigger story. I'm giving you character description there, because she's obviously quite a motivated individual. She won't follow in others' footsteps. She'll go and do what she wants to do. Stood in the centre of the room were a series of bronze globes of varying sizes, depicting places and worlds that Elsa had not even heard of. And that's the major fantasy element in there, that there's these worlds that Elsa doesn't know of yet. As she moved around, so you've got your fronted adverbial, the room seemed to come alive with movement. Sunlight streamed in from the skylights high above her in the ceiling. The light reflected and rippled around the room, glittering off the ornate furnishings and creating a kaleidoscope of colours as the light split and refracted. So split and refraction, if you've ever seen a rainbow, that's what's happening. And if you've ever seen sort of in the early evening in your house, you can get rainbows on your walls where the light is coming through your windows and it's refracted and it's split. So what I'm thinking is that that's happened in the room. Deep purples adorned some shelves, while sparkling red shone brightly on others. It felt like being inside a rainbow. Really obvious simile there. Elsa had just had time to notice the ceiling, painted to depict famous scenes from the greatest novels in all of history. So you've got an embedded clause there. When she heard someone else enter the room, she straightened herself and tried to look a little less overwhelmed. So again, just that little bit there, a little less overwhelmed, tells you how you would be feeling in the room. It should be overwhelming. Okay, so whilst this is going on, there is a story still happening. She's obviously been brought to somewhere she's never been before, and she's meeting someone. Okay, now what I'm going to do, can I rub? Yeah, I'm just going to get rid of all this, and I'm just going to highlight for you all of the very powerful vocabulary that's been used, just to show you how often, if you're doing something like this, you should be using it. Ornate mahogany. Clicked I quite like. That's obviously not description. It's a is it verb? Clicked. It clicked. Yeah. But it made a noise. It clicks like heels on a marble floor would click. So it's very specific there. Cavernous, more worn. It's a bit of description. Forged. Series of bronze globes of varying sizes, depicting places and worlds. Depicting's a nice one. She moved around the room. Come alive with movement, and that's another simile there. It seemed to come alive with movement. Sunlight streamed in from the scarlet's high above her. The light reflected and rippled around the room. And again, that's a metaphor. It doesn't literally ripple. Glittering off the ornate kaleidoscope of colours. Deep purples adorned some shelves or sparkling. Now, you're down here. You can highlight most of it because most of this is giving you a description. Okay, but you'll notice every once in a while I just go back to Elsa, 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 Elsa. I could have said she, obviously, through she there. There's no problem with changing to she or the girl, whatever, but I just wanted to keep bringing it back to Elsa. Okay, I really enjoyed that one today, actually, because it was much more gentle description rather than describing a monster or describing something. So it was a different language set that was needed. Again, as usual, I would love to have a look at yours if you want to send them over to me. Hopefully there were some words that I've used there that you've not come across before, so you can add those to your vocabulary as well. This is going up Thursday, so I will see you tomorrow for Harry Potter and for maths, but for literacy I will see you again on Tuesday. Okay, have a nice weekend.